Hello, everyone. Hello again. It's it's all the time. It's been a pleasure. Every guest is an honored guest, but we have to say the topics of each presentation each have their own value. And being today the agronomics and agriculture part of this summit, well, Aaron's presentation, our guest for this hour, is particularly and special because of precisely the hemp industry. An industry that in Mexico, we were just saying that off camera. In Mexico, we can import hemp products or hemp-based fibers, for example. We can commercialize it and we can export it, but we can't as of yet grow it. And then there comes, yeah.
But we're close.
Yeah, but we're very close.
Really close.
And then we had New Frontier data telling us about the hemp market globally. And then
huge, man.
Yes. And then as of right now, we have Aaron Barr. He is the CEO of Canadian Rockies Hemp Corporation, an Alberta-based agribusiness that focuses on processing hemp at a scale for industrial use. CRHC, Canadian Rockies Hemp Corporation, has been in operation since 2016. And they provide sustainable, consistent supply of processed hemp to manufacturing facilities around the globe. And for numerous outputs, including textiles, pulp, paper, animal bedding, rope, twine, buildings, installation materials, composites, and automobile components. And thanks for being here today, Aaron. Growing up on a farm in northern Canada and studying business law at the University of Alberta, Aaron's firm belief in cannabis started after years of racing motocross professionally. Above and beyond his role as a CEO, Aaron is responsible for hemp fiber genetics research and new businesses market development for Canadian Rockies Hemp Corporation. As one of the board of directors on the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, Aaron believes strongly in lobbying, education, and market development for this new emerging industry. Aaron, welcome to Mexico.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.
So, Aaron, you have something prepared for us today in regards of hemp industry. We would like not to interrupt you, and if there's time at the end, if you're up to it, we would like to ask some questions or allow the audience to formulate their own questions. And the mic's all yours.
For sure. Well, much appreciated, and thank you again for the time today to present what we've been working on over the past several years in Canada, really just integrating a new market and a new agricultural crop, something that's been done around the world for many centuries, and now just really bring it into North America. So very excited on the opportunity to present to you today. And I'll dive into my presentation. So Canadian Rockies Hemp Corp is an innovative agribusiness specializing in specifically hemp fiber cultivation and processing. So we actually integrate hemp fiber as another rotational crop behind our main crops, which is canola. So we really are that focused on the missing link between farmers and manufacturers, being able to actually grow a specific material that we can process and supply to a wide range of industries. And with that development, one of the things that was really lacking in the industry over the last several years because of its, immaturity in North America is fiber standards and specifications. So working with the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, we're working with ASTM International, trying to get standards not only for hemp, for textiles, for building products, but a wide range of industries so that it can be integrated globally into manufacturing systems. So hemp, I'm sure everyone knows about the many different uses of industrial hemp, and that is the exciting opportunity really with it is the wide ranges that it can produce, right from the top of the plant to the flower, which I think is obviously a very exciting opportunity coming up in Mexico. You guys are very good at producing flowering plants, And I think that market is very prime for growing hemp for flower, for CBD and other cannabinoids. One of the big markets here in Canada that's been around since 1998, when the Industrial Hemp Act came into, was growing hemp for seeds. So hemp grain farming is actually quite popular here, and I'll get into that a little bit later into my slides. But what we're really focusing on now is actually the rest of the plant beneath the head. So the fiber, the hurd, or the shiv. So the fiber is essentially the skin of the plant, that bast fiber, and the shiv or the hurd is the woody inner core. So when we bring our product into the facility, we actually take down the whole stalk and process whole stalks through our systems. So there's many different market opportunities with hemp, and I think this is the exciting opportunity going forward in countries around the world that are starting legalization. So in Canada, like I mentioned, we've had predominantly just hemp grain or hemp food, been growing since 1998. Canada is one of the largest hemp cultivators in the world. It's literally 98, 99% for food purposes. And with that, there was a lot of leftover straw material after combining hemp. So that's really where the market is looking to adapt to take it into the next three pillars, which we call food, fiber, feed, and fractions. So food, as I mentioned, is very well developed in Canada. We're exporting quite a bit of our product to countries around the world. The feed side of it is a really exciting opportunity for animal feed that unfortunately still needs probably another year of market research before regulatory approvals actually happen in Canada or the US. A lot of countries in Europe have been using hemp for animal feed. And so it's just a matter of time, I think, before that market really takes off as well. And fiber, like I mentioned, which is our primary focus, really an immature market in North America, but places such as Asia, Europe has a very dominant fiber market. That's just really what we're starting to see now here in North America. Then obviously the more exciting part of the plant, as you call it, the fractions or the cannabinoids, a very highly regulated market in Canada. It's under Health Canada, and you have to have very specific licenses and permits and security in place to grow hemp for cannabinoids. So we like to take the approach that the fiber is the easier one out of the four pillars with less regulatory issues, less inspections, less permits. It's an industrial product compared to doing a food or a medicine or cosmetics. So getting actually into the different categories of the hemp fiber and hemp hurd and hemp seeds, that is really the opportunity, I think, is the wide range of opportunities in market. So bioplastics is a very big push right now with a lot of governments banning single-use plastics. We're really starting to see a lot of natural plant-based plastics being produced. And I think we're starting to see it in the next couple of years using hemp fiber as a feedstock for a lot of bioplastics. And then getting into obviously the textile, automotive, composite industries, which are more dominant and current right now, especially in Europe. So really we're trying to take the lower hanging fruit products, such as, erosion matting, insulation products, those type of things are a lot easier to produce. But like I said, there's many opportunities to supply for hemp fiber. Hemp hurd or shivs, like I mentioned, that woody inner material has a wide range of uses as well. So that little wood chip, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of hempcrete. It's a really new, exciting material that's starting to gain a lot of traction again in North America after being developed for many years in Europe. So there's many companies that are starting to make innovative hempcrete products, and this hemp hurd is becoming a very desirable material where in the past it was thought of more of a byproduct. But now with lumber prices increasing and a lot of scarcities in other markets, hemp hurd can be easily integrated into a lot of other wood manufacturing products. And then the hemp seed and hemp flower, like I mentioned, many different opportunities that currently exist in the market for hemp food, hemp protein, hemp hearts, and then also getting into solvents and biofuels. So the opportunities are really endless with this product. It's what works in your areas. And I guess just to talk about Canada specifically, we have very few rotational crops. We're so far north that we have such a very short growing season. So we cannot grow a lot of high value crops, even specifically cannabis for flower. When we get 3 to 4 months of a growing season, it's very tough to be able to get your crop off at the end of the summer without having an unforeseen snowstorm We sometimes can get 2 feet of snow in the beginning of September. So it's tough to do corn or soybeans or any kind of obviously fruits or vegetables. And that's the reason why canola has been the most widely produced crop kind of throughout the prairies. And so that's where we're really trying to be able to integrate industrial hemp into that crop rotation. And we really only need a small percentage of those acres because there is so many acres available in Canada. Like I mentioned, Canada grows roughly 150,000 acres a year worth of hemp. And yeah, it's less than 1% of our total ag acres that are in Canada. So there's a lot of farmland here. There's a lot of opportunity. And the beautiful thing really with us is we don't have to irrigate. So a lot of the areas that we're producing, we get on average, 10, 15, 20 inches of rain in our summer seasons. So it's a very cheap cost of production for growing hemp for fiber or for seed up here. And as you see in the trends, since 1998, where it was only a couple thousand acres a year, we've really seen an increase since kind of 2010 to 2015. And that's really with the explosion of hemp proteins, just a lot of more hemp-based products gaining global traction. And now you're starting to see the natural fibers, the fractions, and these markets increasing. And therefore, the acres for hemp production is also increasing. Alberta, which is where our company is one of the 3 prairie provinces. And with Saskatchewan and Manitoba, we are the 3 main provinces for hemp production. We grow roughly 50,000 acres per year per province. And so again, with about 30 million acres of farmland in Alberta alone, doing 50,000 acres is just a drop into the bucket. And we're hoping that within the next 5 to 10 years, we should be at about 1 million acres across the prairies, which will allow us to supply millions of tons of biomass, fiber, and herd to manufacturers across the world. And like I mentioned, this is specifically environmental advantages. Obviously, like I mentioned, Mexico grows tomatoes and flowering plants. The only way we're going to grow those is indoors under greenhouses because of that very unique climate that we have here. But what we do have is very long daylight hours in the summer. So when we're looking for just biomass growth out of this plant, when we're seeing 4, 5, 6 inches of growth at the peak growing times per day on some of our fields. So it's an amazing plant, it grows like a weed. And so we're seeing, just in 60 to 70 days from seeding it, reach heights of 12 to 15 feet tall. So it's a pretty amazing plant when you can actually get these really long daylight hours. And that is one of our advantages that we do have up in the north is almost 18 hours of daylight in our summer times. So giving us a lot of that biomass growth. And like I mentioned, farmers need that other rotational crop. So because canola was that dominant crop seeded for many years, a lot of pest and soil diseases have now emerged. And trying to be more on the sustainable approach, governments are trying to institute minimum 3-year crop rotations to be able to give less pressure on the soils, on disease, to again allow farmers to have a profitable crop, but at the same time trying to be sustainable long term. And with that, we've actually had a lot of government support because I think we've been growing hemp now for almost 3 decades. So the research is there, the markets are there. We have a lot of support, not only municipal wise, provincial wise, but also federal wise. So before you had to get a criminal record check to grow hemp, the government has actually removed that now. So as long as you're buying certified seed, that's been approved as one of the 53 cultivars in Canada. No criminal record checks, no extra hoops to jump through, and you actually don't even need to do THC testing anymore. So they've removed a lot of these barriers to the entry, which has helped make this crop a real agricultural crop rather than a controlled substance. And really, it's just cost of goods to produce. So when we're going out and competing against canola, the average kind of gross income a farmer will see will be $500–600 per acre, and that's total gross revenue. So because we don't have those high value crops and so much land we have, we're able to produce a lot of this biomass for very cheap. And there's hemp grows very well in all parts of the world, but what your cost to produce that raw materials is how this market is going to be sustainable long term. So, and that's really what our goal is to supply with diversified, low cost risk. And so because we have so many growers in our area, it allows us to pull biomass from a wide range of different areas so we can have consistent high quality supply of our materials. And one thing that I always like to preach about is to do what you're good at. And, Mexico is no different. Southern US is no different, and Canada is no different. We don't grow fruits and vegetables. We do oil and gas and lumber and very few rotational crops. And hemp for fiber just fits into that very well. And I think that this is the opportunity for Canada to start supplying raw materials to a wide range of manufacturers across the world to really take this natural fiber product to another level. So as I mentioned, there is no shortage of hemp in Canada, but processing was very limited. So the picture on the left is one of our first fields that we grew. You can see the yellow canola fields in the back and the oil refineries even further back behind it. And then along the fields, you will see all the hemp straw bales piled up because there was generally no place to take them. So farmers either burned the straw or just tilled it back into the soil. And so that's where infrastructure was needed to take that biomass and be able to process it into different raw materials. So globally, we've seen a lot of increase in production across the globe, specifically in China and Asian countries. Actually, they've really been stepping up their hemp game. And not only with that, they're also seeing an increase in exports and imports into China. So it's an opportunity, I think, that not only for Mexico and Asia and US, but in Canada, working as a supply chain, whether it's in textiles or building products or just supply of raw materials globally, this is where the hemp opportunity is. So getting into the actual fiber discussions, decortication is the whole process of separating that bast fiber from the woody inner core. And it's not a new process by any sense, but it's been done in a wide range of mechanical, chemical, or biological processes. And as I mentioned, Europe has quite a few different technologies that they've been developing over the past 100 years. France and Belgium and the UK all have technology that works very well for flax and jute and hemp processing. And the picture on the right is actually a government facility that was built in our province back in 2012 with European decortication equipment. And so our government was actually forward thinking enough 10 years ago to see this opportunity that existed in other countries. So they invested $5 million to build this pilot decortication plant, which allowed farmers to bring their biomass, their straw material to the facility to be able to process it into fiber and hurd, and then allow manufacturers to be able to buy that material and build their products with it locally. So we had a lot of support from our provincial government for this, and this is where we learned a lot of our processes and the reason probably why we're here taking it to a next commercial level. And so although hemp is our whole business model, it really is just our feedstock because we can grow so much of it for so cheap. It really is another like biofinery. So similar to kind of like a pulp mill, we're using hemp as our feedstock to be able to produce these raw materials. And with that, logistics is one of the main components to make this industry successful. Because you're hauling so much biomass from the farm fields to the facility to process, transportation is one of your highest costs. When you're looking at 5 bales per acre, and even in the smaller 100-acre field, 500 bales is a lot of bales to move to the decortication facility. So this is why we kind of feel is a very localized, similar to a grain elevator. You're going to contract your farmers in a local region to be able to supply that local decortication facility. So in the long term, we see this as every 150 kilometers would be a large biorefinery for hemp processing in the Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba region. And this is truly expanding upon that decortication into a biorefinery model. As I mentioned, there are many different products, and what we've really focused on in the first couple of years is those low-hanging fruit products. So products such as bad insulation as opposed to fiberglass insulation. There's many different companies out there, not only in Canada, but actually now in the US, starting to expand in natural fiber insulation products. So it's generally 90 to 92% hemp fiber with 8 to 10% polyester fiber. And it provides the same R value. You can treat it so it has a fire rating as well. So these are really cool, I think, products that are easily integrated into North American markets versus getting into the high quality soup markets that everyone wants to get into. Another product that fits very well into here is just erosion matting. Again, there are a lot more petroleum and synthetic based fibers that are generally used in erosion matting. And now to be on the more greener side of things, we're seeing a lot of demand for more natural fibers in this market as well. For the hemp hurd, there's a wide market as far as building products goes. And hempcrete, like the blocks on the right, is one example of that. And we're working with a company also here in Canada that's making structural hempcrete blocks, which I think is taking that concept to another level. And then, of course, animal bedding, which we've seen a recent surge in just again because of the influx in pricing from the lumber industry. Before we were trying to make our pricing competitive to get it down to that sawdust replacement price. And now we're seeing the price of lumber increase so much that they've actually kind of come up to more of our pricing. So it's exciting because, everyone likes talking about the performance characteristics of hemp. It's more absorption. It's a naturally antimicrobial. You're obviously not cutting down trees. But at the end of the day, price point is what drives most consumer decisions. And so when it's 2 or 3 times the cost, it's going to be very hard to get market adaptation. So now that we're actually within 10 to 20% of a lot of the more conventional products, we're seeing a much wider acceptance from consumers. And as we start to develop more into large scale manufacturing and specific production, we can start to supply industries such as these higher end textiles, such as Patagonia, which now actually has quite a few different hemp lines, both in male and female, outerwear, as well as kind of some farm wear similar to Carhartt's. Levi's has announced that they're going to be bringing back their hemp denim. And we're starting to see a lot of demand also come from countries overseas, Pakistan, Bangladesh, also looking to integrate more hemp fiber versus cotton. Even Lego has announced that they're going to be making their bioplastics by 2030 instead of petroleum-based plastics. So from a wide range to carpet, to wipes, to automotive, to feminine hygiene products, to insulation products, it literally is endless. And that's what we're hoping to start to supply is these raw materials. So these type of products can really start to take off and compete against plastics and synthetic based fibers. As far as textiles, I think this is in the next kind of 3 to 5 year approach once obviously production of the raw material increases, but actually getting into the value added processing of hemp fiber. So although hemp is a very coarse and tough and durable fiber, it makes it very tough to actually process into cotton mills. So one of the technologies that allows companies to utilize hemp fiber for textiles is degumming and cottonizing of hemp fiber. So generally this was predominantly done in China with very high environmental impact. So generally done in lakes or rivers or done biologically with other chemicals. It had very harsh environmental effects. And this is why we haven't seen hemp degumming or cottonizing here really commercialized in North America is because of the wastewater produced. We're actually pretty excited that we've been able to just apply for a US provisional patent with our degumming technology that allows us to degum hemp fiber and produce a cottonized fiber with no wastewater or chemicals. So we feel this is a pretty big game changer for the hemp textile industry. Hopefully by 2023, we'll have commercial production of this cottonized fiber. And I think that's where we're really going to see hemp clothing and hemp textiles takes off. As you can see in the charts on the page here, hemp offers a lot of advantages against even just cotton, not only from a performance standpoint, but also from a production and sustainability standpoint. So water usage is a very obviously sensitive issue in the southern US as well as Mexico. So the amount of water needed to cultivate and process hemp is very minimal comparatively to cotton. And that's also same with pesticides. Cotton is a very heavy pesticide user, and hemp generally can be grown without any pesticides whatsoever. Performance-wise, obviously, hemp has a very high tensile strength and absorbency rate. So it really does have a lot of benefits compared to cotton and other natural fibers. And then on the field as well, as far as a cultivation standpoint, it has a very deep taproot, which allows it to break into a lot of harder pan soils. and it doesn't get club root, which is one of our most predominant diseases that we have in soils here. And that deep tap root allows farmers to expand their rotations and hopefully back off the pressures that they would get from club root. Once we actually can grow the crop, cutting it down is its own animal. And so we've traveled to pretty much every country around the world that cultivates and processes hemp. And there is a wide range of technology out there to be able to harvest hemp. The picture on the right-hand side is actually a field in Romania from about 1.5 years ago. John Deere developed their triple cutter combine, that they call it. So it actually allows the farmers to be able to take the flower, the seed, and the stalk all in one pass. It's a pretty miraculous piece of equipment. However, again, it's what your market use is. So they're able to process CBD, they're able to process the seed, and they have a use for their fiber, majority for the automotive industry and a little bit of textiles. So as you can see, this is a very large unit. It's almost $1 million US. And so practical in certain locations, many locations not practical. The picture on the left actually is one of our fiber cutters that we purchased and built. So this is very kind of old technology with a new design to it. So sickle mowers, and this is actually a 2 offset sickle. So it actually can cut 18 feet wide. And we travel at about 15 kilometers an hour. So we can cut down, 10 to 15 acres per hour with this unit, which allows us to obviously have some pretty efficient harvesting. So we try to go with a very seed to product approach, plant variety, seeding densities, harvest dates, the type of technology that you're using with the harvesting equipment, and what level of redding you're doing on the field. All is going to dictate the quality of your fiber and your herd in the end. And then once you can actually remove that raw material from the field is where are you putting it into the decortication facilities. So there's hammer mill decorticators, roller mill decorticators, openers. There's many different styles of decortication technologies that allow you to produce different types of fiber for different markets. And again, I tell people all the time to make sure that they're trying to produce the fiber that their consumers are truly demanding. In Alberta, like I mentioned, we have no textile market whatsoever. So we went with those lower hanging fruit, insulation products, erosion matting, and then getting into the value added processing to supply fiber markets. But right off the bat, if we built our model just to supply textiles, we wouldn't have lasted very long. And so if the technology is starting to actually truly emerge on the field, that's where we're going to see the market expand as far as value added products. And we're fortunate enough to go down to the Case plant in Pennsylvania last year, where they've been working with various different universities in harvesting equipment and technology to be able to integrate just conventional disc binds to be able to cut down hemp for fiber. See if this video can work. I'll play this quickly. So this is a Case New Holland disc bind. And that is a hemp fiber crop. And as you can see, there is a lot of biomass flowing through that disc bind. And before, generally, you would get a lot of wrapping, clogging, and even a lot of fires because of the durable nature of hemp fiber. So now we're starting to see major manufacturers be able to offer these harvesting equipment so farmers can confidently go out and be able to cut down this plant. So setting specific standards for hemp and for bast is really truly key, I think, to take a lot of these higher value industries to be able to accept hemp fiber. So this is one thing that we had been working with the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, is setting these standards. So whether it's going into pulping, into textiles, or into building products, these standards are needed so that manufacturers can confidently order and know that next week is they're going to have the same quality and the same spec materials that they received last week. So as I mentioned, this is not reinventing the wheel. This is integrating a lot of cotton and flax and jute and canaf technology that's been around the globe for hundreds of years. And so we traveled to France, to Netherlands, to China, to Australia, to Ukraine, all over the US, everywhere that we could see natural fiber processing and harvesting. And so what we did is adapt a lot of this technology that exists, and then a mix of building our own with what works with local manufacturing here in Canada. So our plant that we're building right now in Alberta we'll be able to produce a commodity size supply of raw materials to be able to supply not only North America, but as well as European countries because of our ability to produce this raw material for very cheap. So I mentioned after years of research, we finally pulled the trigger just over a year ago, and we purchased 75 acres just outside the town of Edmonton, Alberta, a little town called Bruderheim. What we do have, as I mentioned, is infrastructure and land. So as you can see, we have rail, we have highway, we have high pressure gas lines, high voltage power, water, sewer, all the infrastructure is there for manufacturing to go very large. We have, oil and gas plants that stretch for miles and miles. So when we're talking egg processing facilities at scale, they don't even dent what is in our back doors as far as oil and gas manufacturing. But it shows the scale that there is here for Alberta to be able to integrate a lot of this oil and gas mentality and production into a true agricultural biorefinery. So what we had built our Bruderheim facility for is to handle 50,000 acres per year of input material, which will allow us to produce approximately 50,000 tons of fiber and 120,000 tons of herd per year, making it the largest processing facility in Canada or the US. So once production and processing capacity establishes, further market opportunities are definitely going to emerge. So Canada has spent the last almost 3 decades in market development, market research, jumping through all the hoops that the government put for us. And now we're at a time where they're confident, the industry is confident, and now we're commercializing. So much like oil and gas and forestry, we are a supplier of bulk raw materials, and the hemp fiber and herd will be no different. It's getting that consistency, that quality, and economically green building materials. And I think that's, where the world is going for a more sustainable, everyone talks green. How are you going to do that? And I think hemp fits into that perfect. And we're excited about the opportunity that we have and look forward to making partnerships all the way through Mexico. So thank you very much.
Wow.
Aaron, you've just widened the horizon for everyone who heard you, saw your presentation here today, and for the ones that will see it in the days to come. Okay, there's really a lot of questions that we want to ask you.
Yeah.
Starting from, Logic's the first one to raise his hand. And it's a question that we were actually discussing off microphone as we're talking about, which is, what drove you into the hemp industry? I mean, where did you come from?
Yeah, how did you start it?
How do you start in this industry, and why did you, I don't know if the word will be either grow into or deviate into the solely hemp industry?
What's the story behind?
For sure. I mean, I think there's always funny stories how people do things, and I'm a firm believer in fate, and it's been a weird path to get here where I am. But I grew up on a farm in northern Alberta, and we come from a farming background. I ended up actually leaving the farm, going into university. I was racing motocross professionally, and by the time I was 25, I had 5 knee surgeries, 30 plus broken bones, and kind of had to reanalyze my motorsport future. And actually our team doctor put me into the medical cannabis program after all my injuries. And so I was enrolled in Health Canada's medical cannabis program in 2012. 2013, I actually became a master grower for Health Canada and started producing my own cannabis plants and medicine for other patients. And so we actually put a group together that was going to specialize in indoor medical cannabis and outdoor industrial hemp from a farm approach. So we actually purchased a farm not too far from Edmonton and put a group together with a brilliant mindset and a very large diversity in agriculture, in pharmaceutical, in logistics, in legal. We put a group together that would be able to not only make this business, but actually make an industry here. So when we submitted our 1,200-page application to Health Canada for our medical processing facility, and waiting a year, we started researching our decortication technology for the industrial hemp side. And we just realized a way bigger market opportunity in the industrial hemp as far as agriculture. You know, that was going to be always our push. Is this is a plant, it needs to be grown as you know, another rotational crop out in the prairies, out in the farm fields, not a controlled substance. And so we went actually completely pivoted and dropped the medical cannabis and specifically focused on the agricultural large broad acre industrial hemp side. So we've been at it now at 3 years commercially growing. So Spencer Ty, our COO, and I pounded the pavement for several years, going out to farmers, convincing them to grow hemp. And for the first couple of years, we were known as the weed guys. But with, you know, education and a lot of persistence, we've got a lot of great feedback and a lot of backing now from farmers. They see this as a very viable, sustainable crop for the long term. And it needs to be that win-win for the farmer and for us. If the farmer wins and we don't, and we're not going to survive. If we win and the farmer doesn't, he's not going to grow it for us. So it's definitely a partnership that needs to work long term. And yeah, it's kind of come full circle now, back to the farm, I guess, for me.
Yes. Okay. Then let us go a little bit further into your area of expertise, which is hemp, as what we lawyers and hemp lovers think that hemp is. What do you think? What's your opinion on the hemp definition, for example, in the European Union, of course, in the US, in Mexico, as defining hemp as only the plant without the THC or with a lesser amount or percentage of THC. Does that work for a hemp specialist, or is it just a legal loophole that allows you or potentially allows you to work in those countries?
For sure. I mean, the European Union is definitely pushing for the definitions of, you know, the gray area of hemp. And I think the US has caused quite a bit of difficulty in that area, because when anyone talks about hemp farming or hemp products in the US, 95% of the time is CBD or cannabinoids. And so that makes it very, very tough to, especially because it's still federally illegal in the US. And so when everyone mentions hemp, it's still technically illegal. So it's very tough for, you know, the actual industrial markets for food and for fiber to be able to actually, you know, get acceptance federally. It's because we're lumped into that cannabis definition. So very much we like to use the word industrial hemp. And then when you mention cannabis, unfortunately, even though it's cannabis sativa, it's the same thing. It's tough to differentiate between the two, but yeah, we very much believe that industrial hemp under 0.3% THC is the proper use, and then the flowering, the cannabinoids, is more of the cannabis.
Okay, so this takes us to our next question. In growing industrial hemp, what are the options for example, double purpose cultivation? Is it viable? Do you, Aaron, produce both cannabinoids or CBD in your fields and fiber, or are you just fiber focused? And the question with this one is it viable? We know maybe because of the US, but is it profitable and is it efficient?
Yeah, and definitely, absolutely. And so there is quite a bit of dual purpose production of hemp in Canada, so more so in our southern provinces, so where we are in the north, because we have that shorter growing season, to be able to have that plant mature, to be able to produce that seed or that flower is difficult in the north. But in the southern parts, that is definitely where you can see that dual purpose or even tri-purpose crop. So to be able to collect the flower, the seed, and the stalk. But we always tell people with that opportunity of a dual purpose or a tri-purpose, you're sacrificing quality in one of the areas or another of the areas. So if you're growing hemp for seed, the fiber isn't going to be as good of a quality. And if you're growing hemp for CBD, same thing, fiber is not going to be as good. So you have to kind of give and take with what you're looking to be your primary market, and understand that your secondary markets aren't going to be as high value because of what you're producing primarily. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of hemp for CBD come into the markets. Unfortunately, what we have for varieties here in Canada, it has to go through a very rigorous 3-year minimum research program to be on the approved cultivar list. So because it's 3 years and CBD really only began kind of 2-3 years ago, there is no good varieties here in Canada to produce cannabinoids. So, I mean, we're seeing 1, 2, 3% tops as far as CBD content. So it's, even though we have tens of thousands of acres in it, it's not efficient or economical to be able to collect that flower, dry it, properly process it. It just has such a low percentage that it's not worth it. And again, that's kind of why we turned away from the flower. Is, you know, the farmers can't even grow it very, you know, profitably here. So we wanted to just focus on a high quality fiber only crop. But yeah, I mean, there is definitely opportunities, especially in the southern regions, to be able to grow that dual purpose. You get a lot more money growing hemp for seed or for flower than you do for fiber. Again, right? This is like a lumber yard, and we're trying to produce the cheapest lumber we can. And farmers obviously don't want that, so they want to be able to have, you know, a profitable income source from that field. And growing it for flower or for seed is definitely your best bet. But where we are in the north, we just don't have those opportunities.
Okay, and so you talked about rotational crops, and you're actually the first person that talks about this specific about the industrial hemp industry. Is a rotational crops a specific need of hemp, or is it just the way that you got into convincing farmers that hemp industry or sowing hemp was a good and viable option?
Yeah, I mean, because there is such few acres of hemp around, the disease and soil pressures just aren't there yet. So I was at a farm in the UK, and the farmer had been growing on the same field for 9 years, hemp, and he was still getting very good crops, but long term, that's not sustainable. And that's what we saw here in Alberta and in Canada, is farmers just grew canola, because that was the most profitable crop. And then came clubroot. And so now to actually break up that clubroot, you have to have many years of not growing canola in that field. And if the farmer's not growing canola, what is he growing? And so there's just very few options for those rotational crops. So that was our sell to the farmers, is to be able to expand these rotations, and you're going to get a good income from it. And here's the market for it. It's right in your back door. It's something that's not a commodity market, so there's no pricing fluctuations on it. We have a guaranteed contract price paid by ton, and farmers were really happy with that. So yeah, fitting it into crop rotations is definitely needed long-term for sustainable farming. And hemp allows farmers to be able to expand those rotations. So because it has that deep tap root, and it's in the ground for such a short amount of time, it is a great rotational crop.
That's great. I mean, there's tons of questions here, very specific. Some of them, yeah. Edwin Clemente asks you, he'd like to know if there's some enzymatic method, if you have used some enzymatic method for the cultivation.
No, so the propagation, so seeding, I would imagine. So we do it like we seed all of our other crops. So we actually seed at 50 pounds an acre is what we seed our fiber crops at. So versus very different than growing obviously hemp for CBD, where you might have clones or just doing one seed at a time. So we're trying to get super dense stalks that are like HB pencils. So we're getting kind of like 20 plants per square foot. So seeding at a very, very high density. So some of our farmers have, 70-foot seeders, and it's done in high-speed drills, air seeders, or actually we've had some really good success in the last year of, sorry, Spencer, what do you call the broadcasting. So actually where you're just spreading the seed all over the field with a very large truck. But because hemp needs to be seeded very shallow, if it goes even more than kind of a half an inch, it has a hard time actually germinating. So being able to keep it right near the top of the soil was key for our fiber crops.
That's incredible, amazing. And we have to ask, we've been asking all of our great guests, if you're at a clubhouse, if you're using it, and if we can follow you, and if we might actually even find you at Clubhouse.
At Clubhouse, or I'm unaware what that is.
Okay, so
You will know.
Yeah, you'll find out because we'll invite you there.
Yeah.
It's a new social media platform that will be great. Aaron, it's been such an honor, and it's almost as if we were at a university class, because
no, much better than university.
I hope so. Yeah. No, absolutely. We can, this is all we do now. Obviously we're pretty passionate about it. This is our lives. And we firmly feel that this is, something that can truly change the world. We didn't even touch on the carbon sequestration aspect of it. And there's a lot of opportunities in hemp just for that, be able to, sequester and store CO2 through this plant and then through different products that it can produce. I think that's a very exciting future as well too. So no, happy to always preach, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
On behalf of the Cannabis Mexico Summit, we thank you. Thank you, Francisco, for bringing Aaron here and having to share with us.
Thank you, Mary Capital,
what
for
he does.
making this possible. And Francisco, thank you so much. And change a little things.
I mean, as I said, you've broadened the horizons for us, not just for the two of us, but for Mexico as a whole. We just don't have industrial hemp in the radar. I don't know why we're not looking at that. Thanks again, Aaron. This was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Sure. No, pleasure. Yeah, thank you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.